This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Brett, I want to start with week one. We got the announcement yesterday, college game day, going to Charlotte, North Carolina for the Tar Heels and Gamecocks. You've got I would say the marquee game is the LSU-Florida State game in Atlanta, but it's on a Sunday. Is week one kind of a letdown for college football this season?
Good morning. It is compared to week two, and I can tell you now, they haven't announced it yet, but we know where they'll be week two. They'll be in Tuscaloosa. For Texas and Alabama, the last time they'll meet is non-conference foes against each other. But we now know they'll be in Charlotte week one, and that helps ESPN because, largely the SEC network is in Charlotte, so a lot of personnel, a lot of equipment, a lot of things like that. So that's also a home game for them. But an interesting game with the prospect of Drew May being a Heisman Trophy candidate.
With Florida State and LSU, and then Alabama and Texas that you just referred to, what is a bigger game for the SEC, in your opinion, with both of those teams from the conference being national championship contenders?
I think the biggest game will be Alabama, Texas of the early games. But LSU, Florida State send somebody to the back of the line for sure. But Texas, with how they've improved in the offensive and defensive line, and we've been hearing for a while about Texas being back, so we'll see just how far back they really are. It'll come down to Quinn Ewers. Last year, if he doesn't get hurt, they beat Alabama. There's no doubt about that.
Brett Norsworthy with us here. He covers Ole Miss football, works on their network broadcast for their radio broadcast. Brett, 8-5 last year for the Ole Miss Rebels. Got 9 returning starters on the offensive side of the ball. Jaxson Dart, the quarterback. What's to be expected this year of the Rebels offensively?
I think it should be really, really potent, and Jaxson Dart will show great improvement. The year 2 improvement under Lane Kiffin, it really showed for Matt Corral. I'm not saying that Jaxson Dart has a year anything like 2021 was, both production-wise or win-wise for Ole Miss with Matt Corral, but I think he can have a big year. What really helps is having Quinshon Judkins back there, and really need a second back, because last year Quinshon Judkins, he started as the second back and then emerged as the first one. Zach Evans was really the first one, and Ulysses Bentley, he must stay well, and they're counting on a true freshman from the Houston area, Kedrick Riscano. So we got to see what he can do before he gets a lot of playing time. He's got to do something to earn it, because Quinshon Judkins quickly earned it last year, but there's no way they can run Judkins all year like they ran him down the stretch of the year. I thought in trying to come back at Arkansas last year after just being splattered down 42-6, I thought Ole Miss spent a lot of energy trying to make the scoreboard and the history book look better when everybody knew it was an annihilation. And I thought that took a lot out of the team for the game just 5 days later against State on Thanksgiving night.
All right, so let me put you in the box here. Compare and contrast, and then tell me which one's better, the duo of K.J. Jefferson and Rocket Sanders, or Ole Miss's duo with Jaxson Dart and Judkins?
I think it's K.J. Jefferson and Rocket Sanders starting the year out just from what's been proved on the field. Both players have played a lot of football, and we know what K.J. Jefferson has done in games against Ole Miss. He did everything but convert that 2-point conversion 2 years ago in Oxford. He just played great, right there at home with a lot of family there. I think starting the year out, it's definitely that 1-2 combo, and that may be the best 1-2 combo in the league and in college football. You have to look far and wide to find something that matches that. But Dart and Judkins good, but I would give it to K.J. Jefferson and Rocket Sanders starting the year.
Brett Norsworthy with us, Sports 56 in Memphis on the McClarty Daniel hotline. Brett, why was Ole Miss picked above Arkansas, in your opinion?
Because the game's at home in Oxford, and if they're in a tie break, if they're in a 4-4 league record, that it probably goes to Ole Miss because of the home game at Oxford. If the home game had been available, I think most people would have probably picked Arkansas a little if they knew what they were voting on. But I question what some people were voting on with the number of Vanderbilt voters. But I think it's only because that game is really settled in as a home game.
Paul,
advantage to the home team.
Feinbaum invited the people that voted for Vanderbilt on his show to explain their rationale and reasoning. You've been going to SEC Media Days for a long time. Should they get their credentials revoked for kind of making a mockery of the standings in the picks?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's ridiculous. Some of the criticism leveled at them. I saw where Chase Goodbread with the Tuscaloosa News came out heavily against them. I tell you what we should do. I think everybody should be bound to making their ballot public, though. You don't get credentialed next year if you don't make your ballot from last year public. I'll be glad to show mine. I know there were years that Ole Miss wasn't very good, and they would get a first place vote. And I know who did it. Our public address announcer would get credentialed, and he would go, and he would vote Ole Miss to win every year. And people were running up and down Radio Row asking me if I did that, and I said, no, I didn't do that, and I'm not going to do it. I've never voted Ole Miss won in the West. But almost as ridiculous as voting Vanderbilt won in the East this year was voting A&M to win the West last year. Should those people get their credentials revoked?
Picking A&M, you know how I feel about A&M, Brett.
Year.
Yeah, I mean, you know how I feel about A&M, Brett. So I would be in favor of them getting their credentials revoked. But
I'm not revoking anybody's credentials. I'm scared that the same people that don't like how you vote at Media Day may not like how you vote on Election Day either.
Oh, that's fair. So Tom is asking you about Jaxson Dart. Is he locked in as the starter with Sanders and Howard coming in? I mean, are we going to see one or two of those guys potentially play for Lane Kiffin this year?
You'll see. Yes, I think you'll see both early, especially when you can still kind of save that eligibility time. Walker Howard is more for the future, and he knew it today that he signed. He was going to be scout team quarterback again at LSU, and he did that last year. Both he and his dad didn't want that role again. Spencer Sanders is warming up in the bullpen. He's there in case of disaster, in case of performance disaster or injury. But opening day quarterback, week 2 quarterback at Tulane will be Jaxson Dart. There's no quarterback battle, and there's not going to be a regular dose of 2 quarterbacks. It may be one late in a fourth quarter against Mercer. It may be one late in the game against Georgia Tech. I don't think it'd be Tulane week 2 because I think that'd be a very competitive game that should come down to the end. And going into that game, the better quarterback's probably Michael Pratt at Tulane.
Brett Norsworthy with us on the McClarty-Daniel Hotline. How do you see the West this year? I think Bama and LSU were most people. I mean, just looking at the returns on the All-SEC ballots, those were most people's picks 1 and 2. How do you see the West this year?
I voted Bama 1. As long as Nick Saban's head coach at Alabama, I'm going to vote him to win the SEC West. And I took debate again with all the talent and all the stars and the revamped staff, and I voted Texas A&M 2 in the West.
What is it about LSU you think is missing?
Not much, just maybe just the tough break or two, the tough break like having to go to Tuscaloosa. I think they lose that one, and A&M's got a little bit of a thing against them. Look, if A&M beats you last year, they've got something on you, and they did that last year at Baton Rouge with LSU already set to go to Atlanta. I think A&M gets them again this year. They won last year at home, and they get them again this year when A&M goes to Baton Rouge. That's become a pretty good rivalry, and nobody likes Jimbo, so everybody's up for that game. So LSU fans will be ready for that. But I got A&M 10-2 in the West, and the big step up it will be the play of Connor Wegman, and also I think the freshman of the year in the SEC will be Reuben Owens, the tailback, the 5-star tailback A&M has.
Over in the East, I mean, Georgia's by far everyone's pick, but Tennessee has 62 returning lettermen, 12 returning starters. Any chance that, Georgia, with their light schedule in most people's opinion, any chance at all in your mind Tennessee could somehow eke out the East?
Yes, I voted Tennessee to win the East. I think Tennessee will lose to Bama in the regular season game, but beat Georgia at Neyland in late November and win the East because of that. And we'll have a Tennessee-Alabama rematch in the last year of division play, which is kind of rich because we thought we would get it early in SEC play, especially in the 90s when both were real good and Peyton Manning was at Tennessee, never got it. And in the last year of divisions, I'm calling for the third Saturday in October to meet again on the first Saturday in December, and then in the rematch, Tennessee get revenge over the regular season, and I voted Tennessee to win the SEC. Hope nobody wants to revoke my credentials for that.
So you're a Joe Milton believer, it sounds like, because I've heard some interesting takes. I know Jordan Rodgers thinks he might be the best quarterback in college football. Sure sounds like, based on how you laid that out, you think Milton's going to pick up right where Hooker left off.
Yeah, I went full Tennessee, and I've never been confused as the Tennessee lackey, but I had Coach of the Year Josh Heupel. I got Offensive Player of the Year Joe Milton.
Mississippi State's an intriguing team, Brett. They were picked last once again. 9 out of the 12 times, last time Media Days has gone on, they've been picked last. Do Will Rogers and company finish last in the West?
I have them last, but I do have them winning the Egg Bowl at home in Starkville. But I have them 2-6 in the league, and that's losing at Fayetteville to Arkansas when they play. The only 2 SEC wins I have them with is Kentucky at home and Ole Miss at home Thanksgiving night. But Will Rogers may be one of the most underappreciated players ever, and I think it's because of his size. He's a smaller player, but he knows where the ball's going. But they're changing their offense a little bit. I don't expect him to be ground chuck this year, but they're not going to throw it near as much as they would have with the late Mike Leach.
Brett, we plan on seeing you at Oxford this fall. Arkansas fans make that trip, especially in the central Arkansas area, with it being as close as it is to Memphis. What is the one place that Razorback fans need to stop at prior to the game in Oxford, or after, for that matter?
In Oxford itself, the square. Just to go to the square and enjoy that and take it in and have fun with it. It is a game that Central Arkansas and the last few people living in Eastern Arkansas really do enjoy. It has a game that dates back to playing in Memphis and in Little Rock and Jaxson, and even in bowl games and in Sugar Bowls. I love that game. I don't know why so many people on both sides are so resistant to embracing that game as a rivalry, because it always turns into a wild, fun game.
It has been the best over the Egg Bowl, over the Golden Boot, over any other game that Arkansas has played, and I think for Ole Miss too, it has been competitively the best game in the last 2 decades. You look at score.
It has been tied, and I don't know why fans on both sides would just refuse to kind of acknowledge the other.
No.
I'm just glad the bridge is back open for football season in Memphis. That's the main thing, is the bridge is back open.
Tommy, I want to know who broke our bridge and why they did it, because that was a mess. On a good day, it's hard to get over the old bridge, but then when you get the new bridge closed and the 55 bridge, it is a mess right now. I wouldn't recommend anybody trying to take it, because they're redoing that whole clover leaf on the Tennessee side. But finally, we got the bridge back open. In Memphis, it's tough for us to get the bridges open and the lights on.
Well, I'm glad it's ready for football season this year. Brett, it was great to see you in Nashville last week. We look forward to seeing you in Oxford later on this season.
Your listeners are really fortunate to have y'all. I know how hard y'all work and how diligent you are and how professional you are, and it was great seeing you guys.
You said it just like I wrote it. I appreciate that.
Checks in the mail, Brett.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.